I think I had a lot of coffee this morning. I'm feeling super chatty. I'm like, let's just chat all morning. But let's get to it. So, super excited to talk today with Sarah Michelle about brand identity. And you know what? I've spent a lot of time over the past couple of weeks talking with different people about branding, right? Like colors and fonts and the things. But I love the way that we're going to talk today about it's not necessarily just that, right? So I'm looking forward to that. One of the things that I've been working with my clients and in the Rise Together membership community that we've been talking about is ways that we can show up with consistency, knowing that social media is just like raining down on us everywhere. And now so many of us are on Clubhouse too. And so now we've got all the shoulds. We are shoulding all over ourselves. I should be doing this and I should be doing that. And I don't know about you guys, but I had a week or two there where I was just like, I can't keep up with it all. And I had to just like step back a little and remember who I am, what I'm doing. We'll talk about that with Sarah Michelle in just a little while, in just a few minutes. But here's what I came down to, and here's what I've created for the Rise Above Noise community, and for anybody who gets to hear what it is that I talk about. Social media is all it is. And you can make amazing connections through social media. I listened to a wonderful talk by Jen Jones the other day of Connect and Elevate about going deep, not wide. And if you haven't connected with Jen Jones, check her out, Connect and Elevate. She's doing a great 90-day program on showing up and going deep, like building real relationships. Now, when I first got started in email marketing, what happened was I did it because I was sort of an introvert. And I loved the idea of being able to put all of my words, all of my thoughts down and then move them around a little bit and then and sleep on it and then check it out the next morning, make sure it's really what I wanted to say. As a scientist, you guys know by now that I was a food scientist, a quality control manager, and I had processes. I wanted to know that all of my things were aligned. And so that's where I was attracted to email marketing. And so I like the idea of being able to talk at scale with people who are, who I've attracted, who like what I have to share, who can use the message that I have, and to be able to talk at scale with them, to have a conversation that feels personal and it feels timely. So thinking about everything I just said about being overwhelmed a couple weeks ago and trying to do all of the things, I created a free webinar for March 2nd or March 4th, depending on what time of the day works better for you. Come to this free webinar. It's talking about, I'm going to be going over why you need a welcome email series now more than ever. Now, because we are like overwhelmed with all of the social media and all of those platforms could go away in a second. So that if you have your presence and you have your list and you are nurturing your people in your own personal brand that we'll be talking about, if you're sharing your voice, if you're giving great content and you've just come from a place of generosity, email marketing could help you feel more calm and in control of your messaging like it does for me. And if that's the case, then a welcome email series could really make the difference for you. It could flip that switch from feeling overwhelmed to feeling in control. So I'll pop the link in here. And of course, because it's what I do, you're going to see it everywhere, but do hop on that free webinar, Why You Need an Email Series More Than Ever. If you're joining us here on Zoom, welcome. If you have any questions, pop it in the chat. Let us know where you're listening from on the chat. Same thing over here on, now I'm looking over here so you guys can see. Now I'm looking over here at my Facebook. Hello, Marcella. Good morning. If you're joining us now or later, you can hit replay. Just let us know that you're here. Let us know if you have any questions. So now the good part of my day, the best part of my week, I get to invite an amazing human on to share their amazing knowledge with the Rise Above Noise community. So today I have Sarah Michelle. Her website is sarahmichelle.love. And Sarah is a brand strategist, an identity evangelist, and a truth digging storyteller. I'm going to stop right there for a second because that is some juicy language right there. She's a brand strategist with over a decade of experience in business and identity. And after years in ad agency and global marketing roles, Sarah found that millions of dollars and hours were being wasted in best practices and missed opportunities. There needed to be a connecting point between business owners and their audience across the customer experience and marketing. So in 2015, she created Honey Map. It's a comprehensive roadmap that connects your core mission to your core audience so that your marketing is not ever a guess. She also leads C-Suite, a membership platform for business owners to gain the personal and professional insights they need to successfully run their businesses. And she hosts the Successful-ish podcast and speaks and consults nationally about branding, identity, and redefining success. So excited to have Sarah Michelle here. Now, I asked Sarah, what is her superpower? And she answered, her superpower is soul spelunking. I love that so much. Can you tell me more about that? I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for coming. Tell me
Yeah,
about
thank
soul
you so
spelunking.
much for having me. I consider my superpower soul spelunking, and spelunking is a really fun word I learned a while back, and that's where you go digging through these little caves and you go exploring. And as an identity strategist, I think that's my superpower is being able to talk to people and really go digging past what people are telling me, past what's right in front of me, and really getting to some of the juicy secret parts of who they actually are and finding those secret powers that they have.
So cool. Now, so I mean, I guess that kind of leads us into the work that you do, right? So tell me more about all of that, like how you are a brand evangelist and a storyteller and a spelunker. Spelunker.
Yeah. So I think I was born to go into brand identity. And I always joke that growing up as a kid, I was like that little Dr. Seuss bird that was trying to find his mother and was going to all the different groups. Are you my mother? Are you my mother? And that was sort of me going to the cheerleaders and the jocks and the smart kids and the band kids, like, are you my people? Are you my people? And I got really good at knowing how to fit into all these different groups. And at the same time, I never really fit in to any one group. I had a very outlying identity where I didn't really fit into a box. And that sort of drove my profession of being able to talk to people and recognize how to use language to meet different people, but also how to recognize unique identity and what makes you really you.
So this experience while you were kind of in your formative years, this was something that you worked on. Now, how does that translate to the work that you do with businesses? Or what was your journey?
So I started off in ad agencies and I worked for an ad agency for a few years, did all kinds of different advertising campaigns, touched anything that you can touch with advertising, whether it was print or TV or radio or anything. So that was how I started off, and that really gave me a big picture overview of how businesses did advertising and marketing. And then from there, I worked for State Street Global in Boston, and I did their social media marketing. And so I saw the internal side of how a global corporation runs their marketing. And I think between the two, I saw a lot of companies that were working with agencies and they just weren't totally connecting. I saw different departments that weren't talking together, and there were all these missed spaces where people were spending money, throwing money at advertising and marketing, but it wasn't really reaching the audience. It wasn't really connecting with who they were. And so that's what led me to really start my own business and try to bridge that gap and put together a roadmap that connects those two pieces so that who you are as a business owner, the values of the company are really connecting through the business plan and then also connecting through the marketing and the strategy. So that when you, as a business owner, are working with an ad agency or a brand strategist or a web developer or whoever you're talking to, they don't have to guess who you are and interpret your brand in their own way so that you have 15 different versions of your brand out there. They have a really cohesive message so that you have that consistency, like you were talking about, so that the more times you're introducing yourself to someone, they're getting the same picture every time they see you.
So you mentioned a map, and then you mentioned the same picture every time they see you. I'm guessing that the work that you do pulls those things together. Tell me about the map.
Yeah, it's a very cohesive roadmap. And so we start with an identity session and really figuring out who you are as a business owner and how that translates to your business. And so we look at your personality and your background and the capabilities and what really makes you different. And then we map that through the business model. How are you going to structure your business? How are you going to make money? How are you going to price yourself? Do you have a sales strategy? Do you have comments to overcome sales objections? And then once we have a really solid picture of the brand and who you are and the language to be able to talk about yourself, a mission statement, all those fun pieces, we roll that into a marketing strategy. So looking at who's your audience, where are they hanging out, what are the channels that are available, and then based on your resources, what is the best plan moving forward? And I love Jen Jones going deep, not wide, and that's a big piece of it of seeing, okay, my audience is hanging out on these 10 different channels. This is the budget that it takes to make any of these work. So given what I have, where should I exert most of my energy? And we start to structure out a plan so that businesses can be really effective. And a lot of times it's not even about external advertising. Sometimes it's just about fixing things internally. Sometimes it's little fixes like we need to have a staff meeting or we need to update our colors to reflect who we are, or we need to change some of our business model language. And so it's a really comprehensive look at making sure that our audience is seeing who we really are.
So what are some of the ways that you help the audience see us the way that you've identified, right? You have the identity session, you figure that out, your core values, your ideal client, your mission statement. How does that translate into marketing and in particular digital marketing?
So a lot of times what happens is that we as business owners, we're so entrenched in our business that we can't actually see what we're putting out there. And we focus so much on the explicit message of what we're advertising, what we're marketing, and we neglect to look at the implicit message or the message that people are receiving. And the example that I share is I think we all know that person who says, "Ugh, I hate drama." And that's always the person who loves drama. That's always the person we want to stay away from. And I see that a lot with businesses where businesses are focusing on this external advertising. But if your external message doesn't match the internal message of what people are feeling, it creates an identity crisis and it creates a feeling of distrust. And so, just like when we hear that person say that they hate drama and then we watch their life blow up with drama that they constantly want to generously share with us, and it makes us want to not be with that person, that's what happens with our audience when we have that identity crisis in branding. They're looking and they're saying, okay, you're telling me that you're this in brand, but I'm feeling like this. And because of the competing message, it creates this feeling of unsafety. And now this customer doesn't feel safe working with us. And so that's a big piece of branding is really talking to business owners and identifying what are those underlying beliefs? What are those subconscious things that are trickling out through your business that we might not be conscientious of seeing?
So you gave us one, and now I'm curious. So you gave us that one example of the person who doesn't want drama. I'm trying to think of, do you have other examples of that where a company or professionals message, external message doesn't match? what they're
Yeah,
saying.
so let's say you go into a lawyer's office and they had this beautiful business card. It says best lawyer in town. They want to charge you $400 an hour. But then you walk in, it's in kind of a divey part of town. The carpets are sort of stained, the chairs are ripped and dingy, the lawyer's kind of sloppy and untucked. Which message are you going to believe? Are
Mm.
you going to believe the beautifully branded business card that says that they are professional and established and polished? Or are you going to believe how you're feeling when you're standing there and you're feeling this is not a valid lawyer situation? And you're at least, if you're most likely going to trust your implicit feeling. You're going to trust, okay, this fancy business card cannot speak louder than what I'm experiencing standing in this room. But at the least, you're going to question it enough that it's going to make you hesitant to commit to a sale.
Right. So I'm going to return to your honey map for a second, because you talked about identity. Is it like how many steps are in your map, or is it like that?
It's a little bit different for everyone. And so there's really two pieces. The
Okay.
first piece is just brand identity
Yep.
and knowing who people are. There's a lot of business owners that need a personal brand. And then we also talk about who the audience is and connecting those two. And then the next piece would be the business model and the marketing strategy.
So when you talk about marketing strategy, because I'm pretty niche, right? Like I don't do print marketing or graphic design. I help with websites. I do not create websites. So I'm really in the digital world. And even in particular, even more, it's with email marketing and community building. So what are some of the ways, and maybe you work with more like larger companies where a lot of the people in Rise Above Noise are like service-based or solo professionals. Would that be something like, I guess, like to go back to where I started today, right? That you can't be everywhere well. And is that what you go through with your clients, like where you're going to be and how you're going to show up?
I do. And I actually work a lot with solopreneurs and small businesses. And one of the biggest challenges that I find as a solopreneur or small business is that you have a personal brand and you have a business brand.
Okay.
And a lot of times those lines are blurred. And we feel like, especially if we're service based and we need to introduce people to who we are, how do we introduce people to who we are without feeling like we're just naked on the internet? And we just have
Mhm.
to grab it, everything in our lives. And so a lot of it is figuring out, how do you figure out your personality, your values, your story? And then how do you translate that to your business brand personality and your brand story? What parts are you willing to share with people? And then what parts are personal and kind of off limits? And a lot of times with branding, it's that boundary setting of, how are you going to share yourself with the world? How are you going to share the pieces of who you are in a way that makes you unique to your customers? And while there's many different people who can do the same thing that we're doing, there's a million different email marketers. Nobody has the same makeup that you do. Nobody has the same personality, the same positioning, the same dynamics. And that's really your primary brand differentiation. And that is what's going to draw people to you over anyone else.
I was just listening to, you guys know I love Amy Porterfield. So I was just listening to her latest podcast. And she was talking to Zafira Rajan, who I'd gotten to hear at the Entrepreneur Experience last fall. And she was talking about how to have a commitment to writing content that's, I guess, close to what you're saying, Sarah, right? That it's personal identity. And she started this similar, right? Core values. I think, and I start with core values. I think anybody's going to start with, what are your core values? What's your mission? And who's your person? Then her second thing was, what's your stamp of weird? And maybe not, it's like not necessarily weird, like I don't know. I don't even know it would be weird, but how is it that you stand out? And I think that's kind of what you're saying at this point too. What is it that makes you stand out? It made me start thinking this morning, what is my weird? Like, all right, I got my dog I talk about. I live near the ocean. I talk about that. But I think, and it's not that it's weird, but it's something that makes me stand out. I wrote in big it was 3 lines long, wide, that it's calm. And I
Mhm.
think that I'm going to really dig into the fact that I'm calm and that I pass calm on to the people that I work with.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the questions that I ask is what is your polarizing quality?
Oh,
And that's such a tough thing as business owners because we don't want to be polarizing. We want to be liked by everyone. But when we're trying to talk to everyone, we end up talking to no one. And when we really think about successful brands, everybody has polarizing qualities. And if you think about Paula Deen, right, her polarizing quality is that she's Southern and bubbly and she butters everything. There's going to be people who love that, and there's going to be people who hate that.
yes.
Or Gordon Ramsay. I don't know why all my examples are food related. I must just be hungry this morning.
Okay.
But Gordon Ramsay, who's kind of a jerk, and some people love that, that he's really blunt and in your face, and some people hate that. And so it's really important as a brand, we think about what are our polarizing qualities? Because just as important as knowing who our audience is, I think it's equally, if not more important, to know who our audience isn't, because more sales is not always better. It is not always better to be bringing in more clients that are terrible clients or that are not actually the audience that we want to serve. And as a service based professional, many of us are so talented, we could technically help anyone. You know, who doesn't need an email marketing list? Who doesn't need brand strategy? But it's really important when we're thinking about our brand identity and our marketing, we're not just thinking about the demographics, the tangible pieces of what someone looks like. Excuse me. We're also thinking about the psychographics. What are the beliefs of this person? How do they see the world? Does this person value email marketing? Does this person value doing things right? Does this person value saving money and time? What are the important pieces? And I think that that is a really important piece to knowing your core values in your brand, because you want to make sure that what you're putting out, law of attraction, you're going to end up getting clients that reflect that. And so if you're getting bad clients, if you're getting clients that you don't enjoy working with, if you're getting clients who don't appreciate the value that you offer, you need to change your messaging because they're responding to the brand that you're putting out there.
So I have a question for you. What is your polarizing quality, Sarah?
I say one of my polarizing qualities is that I'm very critical. I'm a critical thinker. And so I tend to work best with clients who want to unturn every stone. They want to go spelunking through their business. And I am not a good fit for the person who just wants to dial it in and throw out an ad campaign and doesn't really care about whether or not they've covered every detail. Um, I think that there's other advertising agencies that are awesome at that. But that is one of my polarizing qualities is that I dig into everything. I'm very much an overthinker.
Oh, interesting. That's good to know. That's good to know. So how do you work with your clients? What are the different ways that you like, you said you work with solo professionals, you also work with companies. How does that get started? Is it one-on-one? Do you do groups?
I do a little bit of everything. And so I do a lot of one-on-one consulting. And basically, we have a few identity sessions and we really build the roadmap out together. And that's my favorite way to work with businesses. I love working with business owners and being able to have the ongoing conversation and really get on the same page about who they are and what they're building. And I am very excited. I'm actually in the process of templatizing the Honey Map process so that it will be more accessible for small business owners. And that will be sort of a DIY, walk yourself through the workbook, learn the process. And so I'm hoping that that will roll out in the following year.
Please do share it with us when it happens. That sounds amazing.
Absolutely.
I'd love to learn more as well. And then you, in the form that we filled out and we talked earlier, you have a free guide on building your brand.
I do.
I'm gonna put the title in that, and you are saying that people can get that. All they have to do is email you, right?
Yep, just email me and I'll send it over. It is jam packed with all the ways that you can build and grow your brand without spending. all the things that you can do yourself to get started.
And that's hello@sarahmichelle.love. Can you give me one example of what I'm going to find when I email you and ask you for my free e-guide?
Yeah, so the guide includes all kinds of tips on how to do a brand audit, the things to look for, the ways that you can sort of go soul spelunking through your business and figure out the ways that you can tighten things up, ways that you can expand your marketing reach if you are not looking to immediately invest advertising dollars. And so it has all kinds of tips about how to change your internal structure, what to look for when you're looking through your website and your messaging, how to see if you are experiencing an identity crisis. It's a really good pulse check to be able to go through your brand and see what may need some work.
Awesome. I'm gonna ask you to send me that. Is there anything else that you would like to rain down on us this morning with your honey map concept and working on personal identity, personal branding?
My one encouragement that I would say to anyone who's owning a business is that a lot of times we think that a brand is something for bigger companies, or we think that a brand isn't something that we need, or we know we need it, but we don't really understand it. And I would tell anyone, you already have a brand. And if you aren't defining it, your audience is.
Hmm.
So it's really important to know what your brand is. And it's not about this high pressure project of having to create a brand. It's really just knowing how to articulate the brand that you already have, because your audience is already picking up on who you are. You just want to make sure that they are picking up the same message that you're intending on giving out. And so branding doesn't have to be this big, ominous, scary thing. It's really just a fancy word for identity. And if you can spend some time knowing who you are and breaking it down and knowing how to pay attention to those things and how to tell people, you'll find that all of your business and marketing just runs so much more effortlessly.
I love that. And I love that. And I love that. And I know that it's not easy to do.
Yeah,
I worked with a coach. I worked with Dolores Hirschman in her master's in clarity. And you would think like, should be easy, should be easy. It took a really long time. She calls it the big idea. What's your big idea? And finally, once I kind of got to it, now I use it in my signatures. I use those words on my homepage. Like I believe every heart-centered entrepreneur has a gift to give. And if you're not marketing, I mean, I'm paraphrasing. If you're not marketing, then nobody can find you. And what good is that? That's a really bad way of saying. I should probably have read it, but you get it, right? Like, but it took a long time, and it took a talented person
yeah,
to bring it out of me. I was looking in the wrong places. I was looking in these groups and I was asking those people, and everybody had a different idea. And then my head got all jumbled.
yeah,
And so to have somebody like you with all that experience and a step back, right? Like you're not emotionally attached. You,
right.
like you said, you're going to be critical and you're going to look at the facts in front of you and pull them out and tweeze them out and help people with that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to hear your own voice. And there's any number of marketing experts who can give you great ideas, but if it's not your idea, it's not going to work. And I think that that's really important, that as the owner of your business, you're the one that's owning your brand.
I love that. If it's not your idea, it's not going to work. Sarah, thank you so much for being here. I put Sarah's contact information in the chat. You guys, if you have any questions, if you're listening to this later, give us a hashtag replay. Let us know that you listened. Let us know if you have any questions, and go ahead and grab Sarah's free guide. And you guys have a great day. I'm going to stop the live stream here. I'm stopping.